Everyone laughed when she stumbled into court, bruised, soft-spoken, and alone. Even the judge mocked her, calling her weak. But the moment she leaned forward and whispered a single military call sign, his face turned white, and his career ended in front of everyone. The courtroom was packed, buzzing with murmurs and camera shutters, as Lily Grant stepped through the doors. Her frame was small, her walk quiet, and her face carried the exhaustion of someone who had seen too much but spoken too little. Dressed plainly and carrying no attorney by her side, she looked more like a forgotten civilian than the subject of a highly classified military case. The judge glanced up from the bench and barely contained a smirk. "Miss Grant, do you even understand the gravity of these charges?" he asked, almost mockingly. The prosecutor painted her as reckless, insubordinate, a former Navy operative who allegedly defied direct orders, putting lives at risk during a covert operation overseas. Lily sat expressionless, her hands folded on her lap, her eyes scanning the courtroom like she was reading a battlefield. There was something unsettling in her silence, something unshaken. Whispers floated in the room. Some laughed quietly, others eyed her with judgment. The judge leaned back with arrogance. "Not every civilian has the stomach for service," he said loudly enough for all to hear. "Some crumble, some break, and some, well, weren't built for it in the first place." A faint flicker crossed Lily's face, but she said nothing. From the back row, a gray-haired man in uniform narrowed his eyes at her. He leaned forward as if trying to remember something. She was familiar, but not from public headlines, something buried deeper. Lily sat there, letting them mock her, letting them doubt. But behind her silence was a truth waiting to detonate. One word, one call sign, and this room full of skeptics would see exactly who she was. And by the end, the judge who called her weak would wish he had never opened his mouth. As the proceedings dragged on, the prosecution paraded a string of doctored documents, misquoted reports, and carefully selected testimonies designed to paint Lily as a disgraced ex-SEAL who'd buckled under pressure. None of the real facts were being shared. The classified nature of the mission she was involved in kept the truth locked behind redacted files and sealed lips. But the moment came when the prosecutor introduced a key witness, a former commanding officer named Colonel Drake, who was known for pushing personal agendas above integrity. He took the stand confidently, lying with such ease it was clear he'd done it before. "She disobeyed direct orders, compromised the team," he claimed, his eyes darting toward Lily with smug satisfaction. But Lily didn't flinch. Instead, she calmly reached into her pocket and placed a folded piece of paper on the table. The judge, annoyed, ordered the bailiff to retrieve it. As he unfolded it, his eyes locked on a single phrase written in bold ink, "Echo 9 Ghost." The room fell into sudden silence. One of the men on the jury gasped. Colonel Drake's face drained of color, and the gray-haired officer in the back stood up slowly, recognition flashing in his eyes. "Who gave you clearance to mention that?" the judge demanded, suddenly nervous. Lily finally looked up, her voice steady for the first time. "No one. But since you've all decided to put on a show, I figured it's time the audience sees the truth." Her words carried a calm confidence that shifted the air. People in the courtroom exchanged puzzled glances. Echo 9 Ghost wasn't just a call sign. It was a buried operation that had gone horribly wrong, and one the military had gone to great lengths to keep hidden. Now the cracks were showing, and Lily had just lit the first fuse. The courtroom had shifted from arrogance to unease. The moment Echo 9 Ghost was spoken, it wasn't Lily on trial anymore. It was everyone who had tried to bury her. The admiral in the back, now fully alert, leaned over and whispered to a nearby aide, who immediately left the room. Colonel Drake was sweating through his uniform, his hands clenched tight on the witness stand. The judge, usually smug, struggled to keep his composure. "You are dangerously close to contempt of court," he warned Lily, but his voice lacked its former strength. Lily sat forward, her voice even. "Echo 9 Ghost was classified, but the betrayal wasn't. I lost half my team that night because someone gave our coordinates away." Drake was on that comms line. The room gasped. Whispers turned into murmurs of shock. Drake's lips parted, but no words came. Before the judge could interrupt, the rear doors burst open. A two-star general entered with a file in hand, his face grave. "Your Honor," he said, placing the file on the bench. "This hearing is over." The judge tried to protest, but the general raised a hand. That operation was sealed under national security. If she spoke it, she had clearance. He turned to Lily. "You should have been commended, not dragged in." The courtroom sat in stunned silence as the general's voice echoed through the chamber. Lily didn't blink. For years, she had carried the weight of silence, the guilt of survival, and the sting of betrayal. Now everything was shifting. The judge, pale and rattled, turned page after page of the sealed file the general had handed him. His hands trembled slightly. It detailed Operation Ghostfire, the op everyone said never happened. It exposed communications, decisions, and the last-minute call that led to the deaths of Lily's team. Colonel Drake's signature was at the bottom of the transmission order. The judge looked up, eyes no longer full of power, but of fear. "Why wasn't this brought forward earlier?" he asked quietly. The general's jaw clenched. "Because certain people worked hard to make sure it never saw light. She tried, but they buried her under red tape and accusations." Lily turned her gaze to Drake, who was now being quietly approached by military police. His bravado had crumbled into shame. He stood up, but no one listened. The court no longer belonged to him. As they cuffed him, Lily finally exhaled. For years, they called her weak because she refused to speak. But now her silence had become her sharpest weapon. The judge looked at Lily with a quiet respect and nodded. "You're free to go, Lieutenant." Lily stepped out of the courtroom into the sunlight, a place she hadn't truly stood in for years, not without the weight of injustice pressing on her shoulders. For the first time since Ghostfire, she walked freely, not just in body but in spirit. Cameras swarmed, reporters shouted questions, but she moved past them with calm grace, her eyes fixed forward. The military had just released a public statement acknowledging the classified operation and confirming a formal investigation into Colonel Drake's actions. It was more than justice, it was vindication. As she reached the steps, a familiar voice called her name. It was Commander Shaw, her old CO, now retired but still sharp in his movements. "You did it," he said, pride glinting in his eyes. Lily nodded, her voice steady. "We did it. For them." She looked up at the sky, remembering the names, the laughter, and the final radio crackles before everything went silent that night. Her fallen brothers and sisters weren't ghosts anymore. They had a voice through her. "They called me weak," she said quietly. "But I carried what none of them could." Shaw nodded, his silence louder than any words. As they walked side by side down the courthouse steps, the weight was gone. No medals had ever been pinned to her chest. No flag had been folded in her name. But her courage had rewritten the truth, not in the shadows, but in front of the world. That day, the world saw what true strength looked like. Not in the flash of guns or roar of commands, but in a whisper that shattered lies, and a woman who stood tall when everyone else tried to bury her. Lily was never weak. She was the storm they never saw coming. If the story moved you, show your support by liking, commenting, and sharing. Subscribe to Unheard Heroes for more powerful tales of courage that the world forgot.